To be honest, NILE just kind of lost their mojo. And I said, are you guys serious about making some changes? Because if you're not, you don't want me, because I'm going to make you crazy.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
Welcome to The Vault, a Montana-based business podcast where we highlight the people and ideas driving our region forward. I'm your host, Marcel Bruschi.
You're listening to The Vault.
Joining us today in The Vault is David Allen, the general manager of the Northern International Livestock Exposition, or as we all call it, the NILE. David, welcome to The Vault.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited to have you with Paul, too. So hi, Paul.
Hey, how are you doing, David?
I'm doing well, sir.
Excellent. Great to have you on here.
Yeah.
We were getting some good content, and I should have hit record, but we were talking a little bit about where you grew up, David.
My
so do you want
hometown.
to tell us a little bit about growing up in
Sure.
in Deadwood?
I grew up in the notorious Old West town of Deadwood. Uh-huh. And I can tell you the HBO thing was not a documentary. That's somewhat
real life
embellished. Yeah. But, Deadwood has a lot of cool history, and I grew up there 50s and 60s, completely different than what it is now because there wasn't any gambling or any of that, but it was kind of a Norman Rockwell, pretty typical small rural town, and we had a lot of fun, and we had kegers in the woods and cruised Main Street.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to look for trouble, we went up to Lead and cruised their Main Street because we were both rivals at that time. There was two high schools then. There's only one now, but
and like 20 minutes apart, something like that.
If that,
yeah. I was like, I remember
2 miles.
Oh,
roughly.
okay.
It's about 2 miles, depending on which way you went. Yeah.
Well, you said it wasn't the way it is now. What kind of change? Where was this impetus to make this mecca of tourism?
So I was telling Marcel earlier, my mother was right in the middle of that. Well, my mom and dad both, because they both born, raised, and lived and died in Deadwood. They lived to be 90 and never lived anywhere else. But when I grew up, 50s, 60s, early 70s, there was no gambling. There was two primary things you did. You worked in the timber, you logged, or you worked in the mine, homestake. And, there was other small businesses and whatnot. And but as I graduated in 69, and starting about that time, and then when I was in college, the Deadwood especially, Main Street was starting to fold up. There was at least 30% of the businesses, I would say, by the mid-'70s that were boarded up, buildings, literally. And the mine had started to wane some, and they'd already told people this is probably going to go away, this the homestake. And when gold went on the open market, that changed a lot of things because it was $35 an ounce forever, and then it went on the open market and changed things. But anyway, the whole place started to change and evolve, and there was a group. My parents were right in the middle of it, and probably a group of a dozen or more that started to come up with this idea of, well, A, we got to do something or this place is going to die.
Yeah.
And B, what about, at that time, limited stakes gambling? In other words, $100 was the most you could bet. And
sure.
That's how it was sold in originally and how it was proposed. Yeah. And I know they made many trips to the legislature for a couple of years, lobbying and whatnot. I think it took them a couple of years to get it pushed through. And with the caveat that X amount of the tax revenue would be earmarked for education in the state of South Dakota. I think it's still that way. I'm not totally sure, but it turned out to be millions of dollars because it's not limited stakes anymore.
Sure.
It's
sure
wide open pretty much. But it allowed them, like when my mom was mayor, they completely tore up Main Street and redid all of their water, sewer. They didn't have the money for that. They never would have. So all of that got redone. And then when I was a kid, all of downtown was brick streets. Well, it's now brick again, at least that part of it. So they went back to the old period. And then they created the Historic Preservation Commission or whatever to keep the Main Street and a lot of the older homes to protect their integrity and keep them the way they are. And there's restrictions. You can't go in and build high-rise stuff, and even 5 stories would be high-rise in Deadwood. But so they did a lot of things like that and whatnot. So it changed completely.
Well, there was already at that time, Sturgis was a happening place. So at least once a year.
The rally when I was a boy was not a great thing. It was pretty sketchy at times. Because my dad was on the volunteer sheriff part of it, which they would activate. So the Deadwood Rodeo and the rally they overlapped.
Oh, wow.
When I was a kid. Oh, yeah, that was ugly. That's how the rodeo
It sounds like there's a lot of party happening in one time.
It got to be bad, though, because there was gangs coming, the Hells Angels, the Diablos.
The 80s were terrible with those. Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah. And it's great history. There was a little Irish sheriff in those days, Dick McGrath, and he was tough as nails, and he didn't back down from anything. But he came up with the policy in those days where they would ban motorcycle traffic in the city limits.
Oh, wow.
So what they would do is they would have roadblocks on both of the entries in and out of Deadwood. And when these gangs would show up, they'd say, well, gentlemen, you're more than welcome to pass through and we'll escort you, but you can't stay. And that was how they ended up finally putting in it, because we had a lot of stabbings and shootings, and it was a tough thing then. Now it's, Fortune 500 executives, they pull their rig to Gillette, unload it, they don't shave for 3 days, and they ride in and go, man, what a trip. We just came came from Seattle, and, you rode 90 miles. But, it's a huge boon to the Black Hills economy. 500,000 plus every year. It's crazy.
Yeah, the Sturgis people move out and rent their, I don't know if they do that as much now, but they did when I was growing up.
They did, yeah. Well, in Deadwood, my dad would send us out to my grandparents' ranch out by Nemo to get us out of town, because it just wasn't a good place for women and kids to be in town.
So events are something that's been in your blood, and not just
in a roundabout way. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
If anybody's got the experience to run the NILE, it'd be David Allen.
We're trying. We're taking a stab at it. Yeah.
It's when you and I first sat down and talked, we were both fairly new in our positions, and your stories, I was just like, man, this guy's got to write a book someday.
Kids keep telling me that.
Oh, yeah. Let me be the first one to invest in that book, because
I'd have to change some names to protect the innocent.
But your journey has taken you from Deadwood, which of course is tourism and events. You had the Black Hills there. You had Rushmore. Things have changed, like you said. Now it's Fortune 500 guys are driving around. But you left there and you started this journey in livestock and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and walk us through how does somebody
I don't know. I could have never guessed the path I took or was on. I was I was very blessed to be able to do the things I did.
You graduated high school in 69.
I graduated high school. I did do that. The University of Wyoming suggested I study somewhere else after I attended there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I went to Spearfish for a year And
Black Hill State? Okay.
Black Hill State,
Yeah.
It was still Black. Yeah, I guess it still is.
Yep.
Yeah. I went to Black Hill State. And I went back to Laramie and found out it really hadn't changed all that much. And I probably didn't need to be there because school wasn't for me. I was in journalism and photography, and I loved the photography. That's the only classes I went to, basically. So anyway, I left there. I ended up at the PRCA ProRodeo Cowboys Association, started their media department, and one thing led to another. From there, that would have been mid-'70s to 1980, and then I ended up going to Wrangler. They were looking for someone to come out to North Carolina, which is where they were headquartered in Greensboro, and start a rodeo marketing program for the brand, a true rodeo marketing, because at that time, Lee, Levi, and Wrangler were all three kind of dabbling in the sport. But Wrangler had just hired 2 executives from R.J. Reynolds, which R.J. Reynolds, this is where it's kind of fascinating. R.J. Reynolds is the father of sports marketing. When cigarettes were banned from television advertising in 71 or 2, R.J. Reynolds was the first company to say, well, there's more than one way to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And so they started sponsoring motorsports, primarily NASCAR, drag racing, that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Well, the 2 of the guys that were in on the ground floor of that, Bob O'Dear and Jack Watson, got hired by Wrangler. Bob O'Dear came over to Wrangler as the president of the company, and Jack Watson came over as VP of advertising and marketing. Anyway, they hired me to go out there and start a rodeo program, marketing program. And soon after I got there, they were like, we're going to get into NASCAR. We're going to get into country music. And I'm like, hey, I want that job. I raised my hand and I got the job. It was director of special events. And it was like a dream job for 6-7 years.
What kind of events were you doing?
So we were in rodeo.
Okay.
And we became the primary exclusive denim product in rodeo. It still is. We went out and signed this driver who had been the rookie of the year the previous year in NASCAR, named Dale Earnhardt.
Who's he?
Yeah, right. I didn't know
Intimidator.
anything about racing. Those guys did, but I didn't. I mean, I'd heard of Richard Petty and, stuff that you grow up out here, but I knew nothing about it.
Southern boy, that was lifeblood for us.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
So, and then we went and signed a long-term endorsement tour sponsorship thing with Willie Nelson.
Oh, wow.
So, and then we were we were the series sponsor of the AMA Supercross series. So, which is motocross in these big stadiums, the Kingdome and the Astrodome and all of that. And then we also were the series sponsor of the truck pulls and tractor pulls. So, and it was all based on who the primary demographic consumer is of denim, blue jeans. So it was like I got a PhD in marketing from these guys, and
master classes before there were such a thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't look at my college resume because it wasn't real good. But that's what happened, and then things just kind of blew up for me from there. Wrangler got sold in 88, I think it was, to Vanity Fair Corporation, which is Lee Jeans and a number of the big conglomerate. And they started shutting down everything we were doing, and I had to lay off, 15 or 20 people for no reason. And I just said, you know what, this isn't for me. And so I went with Childress and Earnhardt, and we started what was one of the first 2 in-house marketing teams for race teams. And so we started doing that with all of the teams that Richard and Dale owned, and obviously for Dale. And that just exploded and went You know?
So tell me, were you the impetus of promoting the Intimidator?
Well, that came from a lot of what we did.
Yeah.
That really where that title, that moniker for him came from the souvenir sales, because, you know, and Dale pretty much invented the souvenir sales in that sport. And then he ended up literally owning it.
Sure.
At one time. But
quite a corporate structure that was created.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was, yeah, he was getting his royalties for all of his stuff, but he was also getting 2% of every other driver out there.
Wow.
So,
so what were some of those marketing things that you guys were doing for NASCAR?
So, what we did in NASCAR, we really took a lot of the tactics that we were doing in rodeo and just kind of took them over there and tweaked them a little bit. The main thing we were in, so believe it or not, in those days, the NASCAR races were not selling out. And in fact, there was a lot of empty seats. And so we went in, we have been doing ticket promotions in rodeo where if you bought a pair of jeans, you got a free ticket. It's a simple thing, which I learned real early on. The simple things are the ones that work the best. But so we started doing that at racetracks. And my gosh, the racetracks loved us because they had thousands of empty seats in the backstretch and, you know, in the turns 3 and 2 and whatnot, far away from the main grandstand. And we'd buy tickets from them for $5. And that, you know, we'd go in and buy 1,000 of them. And then we'd go to our retailers in that market and say, okay, you run this promotion, you know, and promote it for 3 weeks. And, you know, here's your 200 tickets to sell and whatnot. And hopefully you sell 200 pair of jeans or whatever the offer might be. It could have been shirts, but it was usually jeans. That was one of the primary things that we did. But it turned out we would do a lot of things with the brand. And then Dale just became, you know, bigger than life in that sport.
Yeah, the brand is, I mean, you had Dale who
he wasn't early on. When we first started with him, they were booing him, and he was really rough around the edges.
Well, you were either a Dale fan. Well, I was telling Marcel earlier, because this is before her time. You know, you were either a Jarrett fan or you were an Earnhardt, and they were both Dales. And the fact that Ned was always on the mic,
right.
He was always pushing his boy forward, but it created this opportunity. Just like if you don't have a rival, it really limits.
Well, so Darrell Waltrip was the king, like in the early 80s when I started, and here came Dale, and Dale was he wasn't shy about putting what he called the chrome horn to you, and he would bump you and push you into the wall.
If you ain't rubbing, you ain't racing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then it evolved into, then Dale became the king of it, and here comes Jeff Gordon.
Yeah. And
Jeff Gordon's young, good-looking kid from California. He wasn't a redneck, and so he was like communist, you know.
and brought the Toyotas.
Yeah, right. And, you know, just all of that. It was a great, great time. And then, of course, you know, we lost Dale in 2001, and it left a huge hole in the sport. Yeah. And it's still there. It really is.
You and I talked when we first met. You know, I would go down snowmobiling every year to West Yellowstone, and we always watched the race. And
in February,
and we watched that, and it was one of those things where, you know, we saw the wreck, and it was like, wait, that, you know, you see these crashes where they're rolling, and Dale's accident was fairly benign, and I asked you,
walked away from a lot worse.
Oh yeah, and I asked you, and I'm like going, I have to know, because we didn't know until we were 100 miles away from West. We heard that he had passed, and kind of explain just exactly, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, so it was just a combination of all the right or wrong things that happened at once. So when so they're in turn 4. And I mean, these cars are literally floating, they're going so fast on those speedways like that. And he's in turn 4 coming to the finish line. And Sterling Marlin is about half a car length behind him on his left side by his left quarter panel. And, those cars are just moving, like I say, literally floating. And they touch, but barely. But it was just enough to get Dale loose. And Kenny Schrader's on his right side, right behind him. And it turns Dale, and he goes straight up into the wall at turn 4. And as he hits the wall head on, Schrader hits him, T-bones him from the right side, the passenger's door side, at almost the exact same time. So the two, and they didn't wear the head and neck restraints then. He wouldn't wear a full-faced helmet. He refused.
He always wore those glasses.
Yeah. So his motion, his momentum shoots him forward, and this impact on his right side hits him, and it's like this. So it's just, it snapped his neck.
Yeah.
So did that spur like different safety things then with
the head and neck restraints are required now. In fact, almost immediately after that, they came in, and because of the accident, yes. Yeah.
How old was Dale at that time?
He was 49.
Wow.
He and I were born the same year in 51. I had just turned 50 that week. My birthday was always during Daytona, and his was in April. And so he was 3 months younger than I was. But yeah, and his dad died when he was 49.
Oh, wow.
Of a heart attack.
Oh.
So he lost his dad when his dad was 49.
It was amazing that whole brand just exploded, and it kind of was almost instantly passed on, and Junior no longer was, while Senior was quite the antithesis of the kind.
He was a badass.
He was the enemy. I mean, people looked at him like
he was good at it.
But then Junior comes along, and Junior grew his brand in just the opposite way.
Well, and he continues to. Dale Jr., I believe, and I've said it many times, is probably the most influential individual in the whole sport today.
Oh, really?
Mainly because of all of his media properties that he's grown. And, yeah, he and his sister Kelly have just turned that into unbelievable. They own a race team as well, but all of the stuff that they're doing media-wise, podcasts and other stuff, has just exploded with the younger people for the sport. So in a completely different way. And they're two totally different personalities. Dale Jr. does not have it in him to be the hard ass that his dad was. He just doesn't. Now, Kelly does. His daughter, she worked for me right out of college, and I love them both to death, but she had way more of Dale's personality, and Junior had the personality of his mother.
So father, like daughter, yeah. Funny how that works out.
Yeah, for sure.
So why did you leave the team?
So when he died, it really did affect me emotionally,
right,
mentally, whatever. I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And
you're 50.
Dale constantly, because we spent a lot of time together away from the racetrack doing appearances and stuff. We'd fly home on his plane late at night, and there'd be a lot of philosophical conversations about different things. But the one thing he harped on and beat on a lot was, don't miss your kids growing up, because he said, I missed it and I regret it and I can't go back. And when he died, that hit me. As I told my wife, I said, you know what? We're taking these kids back home, and they're going to grow up around their grandparents. So my wife's from Great Falls originally, and I'm from Deadwood. So Billings was halfway between. And when we met, she was teaching here in Billings. So
oh, really?
Billings became, this is where we're moving back to. So that's what we did.
How'd you
So a gal that worked for me, I managed the college national finals rodeo when it was in Bozeman for several years.
Just one more thing, right?
Yeah, it was a client I had. And one of the gals that worked for me was close friends with her. And so we just met that way. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you guys, you had little young kiddos. You come back to Billings. And
Yep.
what did you start to do in Billings?
So I still owned that company, but we were in the process of selling it and did sell it. And I hung on to one piece of business that I had been nurturing and growing a lot because of Dale, and that was with Nike. And we had Nike right on the edge of getting into motorsports. And then, then we lost Dale. And in fact, if you look, Dale's wearing Nike driving shoes at the Daytona 500, and he had worn them for a couple of years. But I was on the board of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation at that time. It's a nonprofit, so it's a nonprofit board position. It wasn't paid or anything. It was just one of those, because I have a passion for hunting and outdoors. And they started having issues with their CEO at the time and their business, literally. And long story short, I ended up with that position for 12 years as the CEO of the Elk Foundation. And that was a whole nother interesting chapter, because they were $16 million in debt when I took the job. And it was...
And did you know that when you took it, or did
I
they?
did.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Sometimes you don't.
No,
know.
you're right.
Sometimes
right.
you're like, hi, here's the problem. Best of luck.
Well, here's an interesting little twist. So it got down to two people, myself and a gentleman from Ducks Unlimited. They picked him first. And he found out that they were $16 million in debt. And he said, oh, no, thank you. I'm not doing this. And so the chairman of the board, who I'd just been on the board, called me and he said, are you still up for it? Because I'd only lost by one vote or something. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, what the heck? Well, I'm out here. I said, oh, by the way, I'm not moving to Missoula. Because they were offering me like an 18-month contract. I said, yeah, I'm not picking up everything and moving there for a year and a half. And you don't like me, I don't like you, or whatever. I'm not going to do it. And they said, fine. And I never did move, fortunately, because I didn't want to leave here. We liked it here and everything. But it was a very interesting, we got all of that debt repaid in 4 years.
Well, is this when you moved the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation to the NFR and the...
Yes,
wow.
That was part of it. That was...
I have to stop by there every time I go.
That actually got me in trouble with some of the board, because
oh, really?
And those rodeo people, those aren't our people. That's not. And I'm like, man, you're crazy.
Wait. How did I'm not, as I have not been privileged yet to go to the NFR, I think is what we're referencing. Yeah.
Yes.
So you get them. I'm just like, this other guy says, I'm not solving that $16 million deficit, but what made you say like, yeah, I can do that?
Well, I knew enough of the staff, the senior staff there, and I talked to him. Before I totally accepted, I called him and I said, so what do you think? Do you think we can clean this up? And the CFO and the COO both were like, darn right we can, if you'll, let us do what we have to do. And I said, well, I'm probably not going to be real popular, because we're going to say no to a lot of things for a while here, because we got to get it cleaned up. They would have lost all their membership. They would have lost everything. Well, they actually did some things that probably would have gotten them, maybe in even more trouble. But we got all that cleaned up. Fortunately, statute of limitations are long gone. So, and I don't think anybody was doing it maliciously. It wasn't run very well. It was kind of a good old boy thing.
Yeah.
So the thing I focused on more than anything in that position was, this was wildlife conservation. It's like Ducks Unlimited. It's like the Mule Deer Foundation, Pheasants Forever, all of those. It's that kind of organization. But they were so pathetic in terms of marketing and advertising. They didn't even really believe in it. All they believed in was, you you have your local banquets and you raise money and then you go spend that money on mission. Well, that's nice, but it doesn't help you grow, and it doesn't push you forward. So we started doing little things that, I'd say to them, we could be doing this and promoting this and reaching out. Oh, geez, no, we don't do that. And I'm like, well, we do now. So, and then the thing at Vegas, so this is so crazy. So the PBR, the Pro Bull Rider Tour, was something that I was lucky enough to be in on kind of the ground floor of them starting. I helped them. I didn't charge them anything and whatnot, and they ended up giving me some of their dates to promote and whatnot. But their CEO, who is now Garth Brooks's manager, at that time, he came to me and he said, man, you should meet this guy, Bill Macbeth, in Las Vegas. He said he's a mover and a shaker, and he loves to hunt. And he said, I bet you guys could do some things with the NFR and whatnot. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to talk to him. I'd meet him. So Randy Bernard, who's with Garth now, he arranged for me to meet with Bill, and I had lunch with him in Vegas. And Bill was on the committee that represented the NFR to all the casinos and Las Vegas events and all of that. He was the CEO at the Bellagio, and then he went on to be the CEO and minority owner of the Aria, and which later sold, and now he's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. But we talked about, why can't we come down there and create kind of a hunter outdoor Christmas kind of trade show during the NFR to go along with Cowboy Christmas? And I told him, I said, well, we can't really get the Convention Visitors Bureau people to talk to us very much. And I'll never forget, Bill's like, you're shitting me. And I said, no, not really. They don't talk to us like we're serious or anything. And he said, give me an hour. And, I think, yeah, okay. I mean, it wasn't an hour. The head guy from the Convention and Visitors Bureau was calling. It was like, Mr. Allen, if you're still in town, we'd love to get together and talk about what possibly. That's all it took.
Relationships
down there, because So I went out on a limb with the Elk Foundation and said, yeah, we'll come and do this big trade show, and during the NFR, and man, some of our board just freaked. They're like, that's not us. What are you doing? And I'm like, you better hang on, because this is bigger than you'll ever imagine. Well, today it now nets well over $1 million in 10 days for the Elk Foundation. Yeah. So, I mean, and it won't go away. That they're going to be.
No,
there
it's a staple.
Oh man,
you go back every year.
Yeah, yeah.
So for those that haven't been, what kinds of things are you finding that's netting that kind of money?
So you have a number of outdoor related brands. Browning is there. Mm-hmm. Oh, Can Cooker is there. I'm not
Silencer
thinking.
Central. That's where I buy my silencers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot of brands there. And then NRS, the National Roper Supply out of Texas, got hooked up with Steve. Steve Decker is the one that really gets credit for making this thing happen. And he has taken it and just blown it up big. Cinch Jeans came on, and they're like the presenting sponsor for that. But the National Roper Supply came in, and they took a huge amount of floor space at the convention center there in the Hunter and Outdoor Christmas part. And they have all these high-end trailers and stuff there. And
the Junior Rodeo.
And then the Junior Rodeo became a part of it. And it's the Junior National Finals Rodeo now.
It's awesome.
So they built a little arena literally in the convention center, and they have every event in there.
Wow.
Oh, it's so
yeah.
awesome.
No, I mean, and it's really been a combination of the Elk Foundation and Las Vegas events. They partnered up, And if you watch the NFR on TV now, you'll see the RMEF logo in those corners on those digital boards all night long. And it's just been a great relationship for both of them.
You know, you just seem to take a lot of pride and I think determination in taking something and taking it to the next level. I had a mentor one time that he always told me, he says, whatever you do when you're gone, make sure that you leave it better than what you found it.
Yeah.
You
hope that, yeah.
And it seems like you've done that. You what created the next transition?
So, my run at the Elk Foundation came to a close, and it was kind of mutual. I was ready to move on, and I'm not a great schmoozer of board members. So they were kind of ready for me to move on as well. So that part was fine. And I was just pretty much retired.
Do you have a little bit of Dale Sr. in you?
Possibly. But so I was happily retired here in Billings and fishing and hunting and chasing my kids around and whatnot. I knew some folks at the NILE, and Bo Wagner, who's been affiliated with them for a long time, he's worked for me since he was 19 years old. And 2 years ago, right before Thanksgiving, Bo and a couple of them came to me and said, hey, we have some challenges at NILE, and would you consider helping us? And I said, what does helping you mean? Opening the door or, what?
A little more involved.
Yeah, right. What does that mean?
What does this mean?
And they said, well, here's where we're at. The rodeo has been suffering for a number of years. Not all their fault, maybe a little bit, but not all their fault. And just other things. The stock show and everything has kind of been treading water. And to be honest, NILE has just kind of lost their mojo, really, in the community. And I said, well, I don't know. They said, well, would you come to a board meeting after New Year's and meet with the board and talk to the board? And yeah, okay, sure. So I went, and it was a 2 or 3 hour session of them kind of firing questions at me about things and me firing some questions at them. And it finally got down to, they said, well, do you want the job? And I'm like, well.
Kind of sounds like it was a job interview.
Yeah, right, exactly.
3 hour.
I said, I do have one stipulation or question. I said, are you guys serious about making some changes? Because if you're not, you don't want me, because I'm going to make you crazy. and it'll blow up if we're not on the same page there. And then they were all pretty much, yeah, we're at the point where some things have to change. And the rodeo was obviously the big thing, because I think if you polled the Billings market, what is NILE, the overwhelming majority would say, well, that's a rodeo in October.
Yeah.
It can most people's perception.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than that, because it's a stock show and all of that. But that's what that was the impression or the image people have. And I said, we have to change that rodeo. And I said, we're going to have to move it. And I didn't know anything about an outdoor arena or any of that at that point in time. I didn't, not at all. I figured we were going to be looking at probably moving it to maybe partner up at the same time Rapid City had the Rodeo Rapid in January, February. So they could work both of those together and whatnot. Something like that.
Sure.
But anyway, so I took the job and jumped in, and I've been changing everything ever since, it seems like. It feels like.
Well, go back to the outdoor rodeo. I mean, for me.
Well, like I said, I took that job in February of 24, and coincidentally, and it just shows you how you never burn a bridge or you what goes around comes around thing. Stony Field is somebody I knew 30 years ago because he worked for Bob Tallman when they started a rodeo stock registry where they were registering bucking bulls down in Texas. Kind of like a quarter horse registry, only this was for bulls, which it's still going today. The PBR owns it. Anyway, I knew Stony then, but had lost touch with him, and and when he got hired, I reached out to him and said, "Hey, welcome to town. I'm living here now. If you ever," we met and had coffee. We just caught up, not knowing anything about what I might be doing about 6 weeks after we met. So we started meeting right away when I took this position of, hey, something's got to give here. We got to fix this rodeo. And he's like, yeah, no kidding. We're with you. We want to help. And so we started talking. I had known John Osland a little bit, but not really.
God rest his soul.
Certainly, yeah. And I didn't know him on a professional level at all. But immediately he became part of the equation and the conversations. And I can't remember, but it was in March. I mean, less than maybe a month after I'd taken the job, the phrase outdoor arena popped up. And I'm like, what? The what?
The what?
The what? And I mean, I'm like, oh my God. I didn't want to overreact, but I was like, what? Tell me more. And so they're like, yeah, this thing probably could become a reality. And, there's been discussions and I had none of this. I didn't know any of it. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm your biggest fan. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because I said, I think we can move this rodeo outdoors to the summer. Well, that's when, so the Metro owned the Fair Rodeo at that time. And it was not doing well at all for a number of reasons. And so Stoney came to me and said, hey, our contract is up after this year with this Fair Rodeo. What would NILE think? Before he could even get out of his mouth, I said, we'll take it. I mean, to me, it had as much potential written on it as anything else I'd seen. Because I was searching at that time, what are we going to do with this rodeo? We got to get it out of October. We got to do something. So, long story short, that's how we ended up. The Fair Rodeo is now NILE's event. Because we took it from Metra with the PRCA, and it's now registered as a NILE event and blah, blah, blah. And so then we went to work for... Well, let's see. The arena got approved last July of 24. And so now it's a reality on paper. That's it. And so I'm immediately at Stoney's door going, okay, all right, what's the time for, what's the schedule? What's this look like? And he's like, well, it's got to go out for bids. It's got to do this, because it's a county property.
Sure.
Nothing works like the private sector. So we go into fall of 24, and I've got the NILE board on board with, we're going to take over the Fair Rodeo. So now I've got to get that approved by the PRCA. They approved it finally. And we couldn't keep the Franzens, Powder River Rodeo, as our stock contractor because they had a conflicting date in Idaho with the Fair Rodeo. So it was like, okay, I got to find something else. Well, it just turned out that J-Bar J and Pickett were available. And
very nice.
As soon as Lori and Hank Franzen had pretty well passed on, we just can't do Caldwell, Idaho and Billings at the same time. I said, I get it. And I said, so I have to move on. And I mean, I was over in Circle immediately. Actually, we met in Miles City. Sparky and I did, and had a great conversation. And we hashed it out over lunch over there. And So that part was in place. So we got all the elements in place, but we still have an outdoor arena on paper. And
you kind of need that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So now we're going into January, February. Well, obviously winter, you can't do a lot. And so I'm asking Stoney, what's the time frame? What does this still look like? What are he's like? Well, they're telling us they can be done by, July 10th. And I'm like,
wow.
Lord. Yeah. So they start digging the footings for the arena. We get all that rain in April, May, which we love the rain. Well, now we're all of a sudden 4 weeks behind. We literally had a meeting with Metra, with Stoney and Cody and Tim and a bunch of them. We have to have a plan B of Rodeo Billings will have to move into the Metra in this summer because the arena won't be done. We were convinced, or we were about 50-50. And
who was the contractor?
So there was a combination of Knife River did the dirt, Tut Construction did the grandstands, and then Hank Franzen did the arena.
Oh, wow.
And it was nobody's fault. It was weather and,
oh, sure.
Just
it did
everything.
rain a lot, and then it just kept raining all summer.
Yeah, but I'll say Jeff Tut, who owns Tut Construction here in town, and they build a lot of grandstands and stuff. He made up ground, and he had crews in here from Idaho and everything working 12, 14 hours a day putting that grandstand together, literally screwing on bolts and everything else. I mean, all day long. Kids, 20-year-old college kids. And they got it done, and it all worked. But yeah, it was interesting to get there. So we had Rodeo Billings a couple weeks ago, and we
had
got
the
through
ribbon
it.
cutting, and you've got some cool things in the arena. Some VIP places to maybe generate some extra money.
Yes,
you got some numbers for us that you can kind of.
My numbers would be very preliminary, unofficial. First of all, I would say we exceeded expectations. We certainly exceeded
what we
mine.
want to know.
I was going to be totally ecstatic if we broke even first year, just not knowing, and so many unknowns. But first night, the attendance was decent. I think we had about 1,800. So we have a seating capacity of 3,500, and we can do another 500 plus in VIP, so around 4,000 you could do in there. We had about 1,800 in the grandstands paid, and we were full in the VIP every night.
I'm sure you were.
We were overflowing. Yeah. So, we had 2,300, something like that. It was good. It was decent, but I'm sitting there running the math in my head knowing this is going to be really touchy if Friday and Saturday aren't bigger. And so Friday was better, about 2,500 or so. And Saturday, we get into about the first 30 minutes of the event, and the place is only it's a little over half full. And Stoney calls me on the cell phone, and he goes, "Are you okay if we open up standing room only?" And I said, "What?" I thought he was. I said, "Yeah, right." He said, "No, I'm serious." He said, we got to decide here. And I'm like, "Stoney, what are you talking about?" I said, "There's maybe half the grandstand still." And he said, "Have you looked at the line?" And I hadn't.
Oh, man.
So I went out and looked around, and it was 6 wide, clear back to the pavilion. And I said, "Holy, you know what, man." I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Standing room, sell it. $10 a head or whatever, go for it." And they ended up selling, I think, 150 in standing room only.
Nice.
By the time we got to the saddle bronc riding, was like the third or fourth event in, the place was packed. And I'm just like, this is not real. I cannot. Literally selling out a perf the first year. I mean, I was shocked.
And you guys had like a big screen, so you had other things going on too. Like, what were some of those other things that you had incorporated into the event?
If you're going to do, and I'll say we didn't do anything at this rodeo that's not being done at Pendleton and Cheyenne and Deadwood and the really good rodeos of today in the West. And because rodeo is extremely healthy right now as a sport and as a business. And, you know, you got to have a really good VIP effort, and you got to have a big screen. You got to have great production. You got to have, I believe you have to have 2 announcers nowadays, and most of them do, because you have so many things to cover besides what's going on in the actual arena. You got your sponsors and all that kind of stuff to cover off of. And two announcers feed off of each other, and it's just a different vibe, as they say. So all of that, and we purposely hired, except for Bob Tolman, we purposely hired very young guns in the business and tried to hire all Montana. And we hired all Montana but one bullfighter. That was Bo Sheath, and he's from Douglas, Wyoming. That's a
close
suburb.
enough.
That's a
Yeah,
suburb
we'll
of
take him.
Montana.
Yeah.
You know, Wyoming and Montana are
Dang right.
kind of this North and South Dakota, same thing. So, so you know, we had all young talent, but really good talent, and they're going up the ranks in the PRCA all over the country. But they're all from Montana, and that was on purpose. And we had Sparky Dreesen from Montana, so we tried to make this a Montana-centric event as much as we could, because that's how we roll. I think it's Montana takes care of Montana first. And Bob and I have been friends over 50 years, and I really wanted him, if I could get him. Wayne Brooks wasn't available, and this was kind of Wayne's market, but he was in Canby, Oregon, so he was booked. And I was talking to Bob, and he said, I can come up there. And I said, all right. Now, I said, man, I really want you to come, but can I afford you? And he gave me a price that was ridiculous, low by his standards. And I said, you got it. And so we agreed to a multiple year thing. And I said, now, this isn't Houston. This isn't Fort Worth. This isn't a corporate rodeo. This is supposed to be fun. And we're going to encourage fun with all of our production folks. Because I said, I want the people coming to have fun, because they'll come back. And I think it was. I think, and I would say the biggest surprise or result or whatever was the energy of the crowd that showed up. It was unbelievable.
Nice.
And even Tallman said, I haven't been around a crowd like this in decades. And it's true. That isn't just blowing smoke. The people were in it.
I heard that too. I've heard nothing but really good things from people that went.
It was crazy how they were so responsive and so energetic. And
do you think being outdoors had a little something to do with it?
I think it had a lot to do with it.
Because it feels more like the small town rodeo where you're like, we're outside, like
absolutely
how they used to be.
But there were some things that I don't think they were even aware of that made it good. The level of the buck and stock, especially the horses, which is what J Bar J and Pickett are known for. There's no other group of horses at their level, bar none. I mean, they are the best in the country. But when you start off your rodeo and the action is the way it is, people are like, whoa, and they just get into it. And I'm still kind of in shock at the crowd. I really am. And they'll come back.
Yeah.
And it's just going to make next year that much easier to do. It really is. And it shows us what we have to build on, because this thing can really be cool.
Well, that's where I want to go next. You have this creative energy that I really have enjoyed getting to know, and
I don't know any better.
And so I know that there is something else spinning up there. What do you have planned next for this town?
So, Rodeo Billings 26. Same thing, same time, but bigger and better is kind of my strategy right now. We got to do that again. There's a lot of little things we're going to tweak and do a little bit different, but you would never notice them. or most of them.
250th anniversary of the country?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. We're going to play into that. Oh, big time.
And you'll have been in the facility for, I mean, like it was brand new and you guys are like, let's go. And you're operating in this whole new.
No, we're definitely going to take advantage of that, that anniversary of the country. And you would assume with Trump in office and everything, it's going to be a lot of Americana, whether people like that or not. It's going to be there.
It's Montana.
So, yeah, exactly. Again, it's
patriotic.
Montana.
Yeah.
It should be. Yeah. And I'm looking at getting more of the bigger name cowboys in here. We had a lot of them. We had a huge amount, especially in the 2 bronc riding events, which, again, that's because of Sparky and Cullen's horses. And when we did put up a fair amount of prize money, and I hope we can continue that and keep elevating that. So Rodeo Billings, bigger and better. And definitely not going to add any more performances to that right now, because if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But there is another event that I really want to do, and we're trying to figure out how, when, and all of that. So Darby has one now in June, and it's an extreme bareback competition. It's rodeo, but that's all it is bareback riding. Now, the bull riding gets a lot of attention because of what it is and the PBR. And I mean, I'm very pro PBR. It paid for my kids' college and a lot of other things. But the bareback event is probably the most overlooked, underrated event in the sport. But its entertainment content is off the charts when the animals are right. And Darby is put on by Sparky and Cullen. Oh. And they put out over 100 head in 2 days and had 7 re-rides out of 100 head. Now, that's almost impossible to do. Well, and one of those re-rides was Rocker Steiner, and he was 85 and a half, but he had to take the re-ride to try and make the short round, and he didn't make it. But yeah, I mean, when you get a re-ride and it scores 85, it's like, come on.
I have to ask because we just had him on too. Are they descendants at all of the Tuke bucking horse line?
Yes, they are.
Have to ask.
No
Toby would be upset if I didn't ask.
Yes, he would. Yeah. So, and that's a passion of mine, is that whole Tuke thing.
Mm-hmm.
Marcel's from Ekalaka.
Yes, that's what she said. Yeah. And
Toby speaks very highly of you. Yeah, and is appreciative of you.
Growing up in Deadwood, Feek Tuke was bringing horses there to the Deadwood Rodeo in the 60s. And actually, they banned one of his horses because he was so nasty. It was one of his studs. I can't remember if it was General Custer, one of them anyway. But yeah, well over probably 70% of those horses that were here go back to the Tuke bloodline and the breeding. Oh, wow. It's crazy what Feek Tuke did. And that whole documentary is just an incredible story on the guy.
And I think it's great that they're, like Billings is Eastern Montana, that then these horses, their line of where they came from, they're back here too.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really special.
Yeah, exactly. There was a whole lot of people, we ran that little piece during our rodeo, and I had a lot of people comment of, I didn't know that. And I was like, I know, that's why we did it, because people don't know what kind of an impact Feek Tuke literally did in some ways save the rodeo business in the 50s and 60s, because they were out of bucking horses. They were just getting old sour saddle horses or anything they could buck at all, and they weren't very good. And he started coming up with this whole strain of these draft-crossed horses that would buck, and they were big and athletic and renegade, and it just took off. And he would be blown away today if he had lived long enough.
Yeah, it is a cool story.
Yeah. And how he died.
Yeah.
So he had a bucking horse of the year in 1963, and they invited him to come to the 1964 NFR in Oklahoma City to accept this plaque for this horse. So he rode out in the arena, and they gave him his plaque, and everybody cheered and whatnot. He rode out of the arena and fell off the horse with a heart attack and died right there, just like that.
Couldn't ask for somebody involved like that. That's the way.
It's crazy. You couldn't make up something like that for a movie.
For a guy that wasn't involved in rodeo, I always like to say I grew up just north of Pawhuska, Oklahoma, and I knew some guys that they fancied themselves to be bull riders, and I was doing a dive job in Henrietta, Oklahoma. And
Jim Shoulders country.
I was just going to say, I asked this kid who was full of himself. I says he was trying to hit on a girl, and I asked the question. I'm like, so who do you think is the most famous cowboy out of Henrietta, Oklahoma? And he's like, well, of course, Troy Aikman.
Yeah, right.
I'm like,
he might be second.
Jim Shoulders, 18-time bull rider of the year.
Exactly.
It's and you just won the Jim Shoulders. Well, when you were with PBR, you won the Jim Shoulders.
I was given that award in 2007. Yeah, that was. I didn't expect that at all, but yeah, that was cool.
What a climb you made in the world of rodeo.
Well, and to get an award named after Jim, because I worked with him. He was a Wrangler in Dorsey, so I worked with him when I was at Wrangler, and he and Sharon were just the nicest people.
Oh yeah,
and he was Mickey Mantle in those days.
Yeah.
I mean,
unbeatable.
Yeah,
unbeatable.
Yeah, exactly.
We've had some good ones, but nobody's even gotten close.
Oh no, he was
unbeatable.
incredible.
You guys are saying names that I'm not lying. I don't know all of them, but that's okay. I'll Google them later. Yeah, you'll have to ask Toby too about coming back to Feek a little bit. They lost his hat for years. They couldn't. And it was traveling around with Clint Eastwood's and these museums and others. Yeah. Toby finally located it, but they had all of his stuff from that night except his hat. And a hat's a big deal.
Oh yeah.
And so they found it, but they don't know how it got where it got.
Huh, I didn't know.
You'll have to ask him about it.
I will, for
sure. He'll tell you the story.
I had not heard that.
Yeah. Well, David, it's been really great to have you on and to hear your story. And Billings is lucky to have you. We're excited to go to Rodeo Billings next year. We were at the ribbon cutting, which was a lot of fun. The governor was even in town, which was a big deal. But we like to end each episode with a couple rapid fire questions for you. So Paul will kick it off with that first one.
Okay. You've said there's a great Western legacy at the NILE and that your goal is to build on it while dedicating to Western sports and Montana's ag culture. Can you talk about what that legacy means to you and how you see the NILE carrying it forward in the future?
That legacy to me is a lot of pressure because to me there's expectations. Maybe I put them on myself, but to live up to what the NILE has represented in this community for, I think it's 66 years or something like that. Wow. Yeah, almost as old as I am. But, I mean, you had Conrad Burns, the Goggins family. I mean, everything that those people and many others have given to this community, and we are an ag community still. And I would hope we never lose that element of it. Yeah, we can chew gum and walk at the same time and all of that with developing, other things in our community. But ag to me, and I grew up around ag, so I just think it's important, and I think we have to have ag in this country, and we have to have young people to survive. So that's why I would like to maybe, contribute some to making the NILE more relevant again and delivering that message, if you will, of ag is real and it's important.
And I think you're well on the way of doing that, well on your way of doing that. So my question is, who has been the biggest influence in your life, personally or professionally?
Oh, wow. Well, my parents were definitely big influencers on me because I grew up, Deadwood, very small town, and they constantly said, don't let anything hold you back, that kind of thing. But a lot of people, Richard Childress was big, as a team owner for Earnhardt. We're still very close and stay in contact a lot. He was definitely big. And there was a gentleman at PRCA. He's no longer with us, Ken Stemler. Ken was originally the senior VP of Frontier Airlines, and he moved over to PRCA and took over their marketing and licensing and all of that. And he's the one that moved them from Denver to Colorado Springs. He built that whole Rodeo Hall of Fame and the headquarters building and all of that. I learned more from him about how to structure sponsorships and what all of that meant. I didn't even know what a demographic was until I was around Ken. But he was a huge influence on me. But there's a lot of people, but definitely Richard, Ken, for sure. Yeah.
Dave, I got to ask you this. I'm probably going to be in trouble because I've got another question here. But while we're sitting here, I can't help but just to get to the heart of who you are. You've had an incredible career doing so many amazing things. In the end, you don't have to keep doing this. What motivates you? What is the thing that drives you to keep doing this?
Yeah, so my wife and I, well, we've been married 30 years this year. I'm 74, so you can do the math there. And we had 2 kids. So I was an older parent. I am an older parent, not was, am. And my kids are definitely a big part of my motivation because, in a normal, whatever that is, situation, you would be in your 40s and 50s going as your kids are developing and moving up and whatnot. And I want to be a part of what they're doing, but I also want them to see, I kind of like to model some things for them, what's good and what isn't. Sure. And, not that I always do the right thing, but you try. Yeah. But my kids are definitely a big part of that. I tried retirement for 2 years. It's highly overrated.
I agree.
It doesn't mean you have to go back and jump in as deep as I did, but I think you need to. I think how you live longer is do something.
Yeah.
Move, keep moving, keep your brain going and whatnot. And somebody pointed out to me the other day, they said, the word retirement's not in the Bible. And I'm like, well, I never thought about that. But so maybe this retirement thing is an American thing I don't know, but it's not for me. I couldn't, I was ready to do something. And my wife was ready for me to do something.
Well, you've got a lot of energy and a lot to give. So I think we're lucky to have you.
Well, I appreciate it. I will tell you, I need some young people around me to execute because I don't have that much energy anymore.
Well, I don't know if I believe you, but
I got enough for ideas. But
yeah. So where can people, if they're wanting to like learn more about the NILE, get connected with you, where can they find you?
So the NILE.org is the quickest and easiest way. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, David, this has been awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate what you're doing for, for the whole community. And well, it's more than the community. It's the eastern half of the state, really, because that's how the people that don't live around here, they don't understand. Montana's a big city.
Yes, sir.
Basically.
It is. That's where everyone comes.
Somebody everywhere. And Billings is such a key to, the whole state, but certainly I think the eastern half of the state. I really think it is. And I want to see Billings grow and stay relevant and vibrant.
Still authentically Montana.
Absolutely. I think that's important, the authentic. Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks, David.
Hey, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Vault. Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway or Instagram at TheVault_201. Or check us out on our website, thevault@201.com, where you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. See you next time.